Hello and welcome to episode 152 of the Mouse Makes Knitting podcast. My name is Mandy, sometimes known as Mouse, and before I start I'm going to apologise for the fact that I'm very puffy-eyed and I'm probably going to have to take a few sips of water because I have dehydrated myself over the course of the weekend, but I'll tell you all about that later. So really, this episode is to bring you up to date on my trip to the Southern Wool Show in Newbury in Berkshire and show you what I brought home with me and a little bit of knitting that I got done. Very little bit of knitting. There was not as much time to knit as I had anticipated, and so had taken 4 projects with me. One would have done, but you know what it's like. One of the things I brought back, and I haven't got it with me, I'll have to see if I can insert a photograph, is a mug that says, "If I can't take my knitting, I'm not going." That was a present from Dave, and yes, I think we can safely say he knows me very well. So knitting wise, I drew this out of my little jar last week. It's the unnamed, unfindable pattern that I'm just calling my People's Friend cardigan because it came from the People's Friend magazine, and I inherited the pattern already torn out and in a Polly pocket from a friend's mum. So I've done from there up, and most of that was after I got home. The yarn I'm using is Sirdar Jewel Spun in Evening Jade is the colourway, and it's really nice to knit. It's not taxing. It's one of those patterns that looks far more complicated than it actually is, and yeah, I'm gonna have to put it away because it's time to pick another project today. I also took, because I had a bit of a flap on the morning that we were going, that I hadn't got enough knitting, so I fished this out. This is the Woolseer shawl, and I'm knitting this in one of my gradient sets. It's the Sunset Vibes, I think. It's got a bit screwed up in the bag. Again, it's a pretty simple pattern, and I think I maybe got 2 or 3 rows done on it. I think that marker there is marking where it was when you saw it last, but I don't know when that was. And this was a rogue project that I took because I shouldn't have done it. It shouldn't have been, it didn't come into the rotation this week. I'm wondering what I've done with the rest of the yarn for it. Oh, it's over there. I can't get it. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely done for. Okay. You'll see it next time it comes out of the jar. So that was one rogue project I took. The other one was this, and I took this for car knitting because it was quite a long trip. It was 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back. And I didn't actually do very much of this either. This is a DK weight Musselburgh that I'm knitting. Last time you saw it, I was all the way down there. I'm holding fingering weight double, and it's one of my Advent projects from last year. Well, it's not actually. It's what's left over from one of my Advent projects last year, and there was a lot. There was over 100 grams that I'd wound into this magic knot ball, which isn't a magic knot ball, it's a Russian join ball, but we're not going to worry about that. I feel the need to explain that every time, and it's unnecessary. So before we left, I made sure that I was off the DPNs, so I'd finished the shaping. So I did knit, I suppose, that much in the car from there upwards. Unfortunately, despite the fact that I'm holding 2 strands together, it's done something that I don't like very much. That day's colour has flashed horribly. So I now have, I'm trying to get it, that's it. I now have those sort of yellow diagonals all the way around the hat. So this might end up being the inside, which is a shame because this section here I love. It's a Discreet Unicorn Advent and it's the one from 2022. I have bought her Advent for this year and I think I chose DK, I think. But I actually bought it before Christmas last year, so I could be wrong. It's been a while. So, yeah, that really shouldn't have gone, but it did so that I had some car knitting. Truth be told, I could have knit this in the car. It's simple enough. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But I panicked and I needed to take more than 2 things. In actual fact, I took 5 things. I've just thought because I took some socks as well. Poor Dave. I do not travel light. Okay, this is the other project that I was supposed to take, the one that came out of the pot last week. And I'm actually going to keep this to work on this week because I did so little. That was a spare needle. I didn't need to pull that out the bag. I don't think I put, useless, I don't think I put a marker in. The pattern is the Lumi Cowl by Justina Lokowska. And I was about halfway up this bit here. So I finished this bit, which it's, what's the word I'm looking for? My brain wants to say it's a tunnel cowl, and I'm sure that's not a thing. But basically, you knit it in the round, so there's not a wrong side, and then you join the ends together. So there's a provisional cast on, then you join the ends together when you're finished. So you start off with your main colour, then you move into the colour work, and I've done a few rows of the colour work. I don't know how well you can see that. I've just got to where I've got the contrast colour and the background colour alone. I've not got the main colour anymore. It's not very much to look at, which is why I want to carry on with it this week. I only knit on this for a couple of hours our first evening, so I feel, and that's all it had all week. So I feel it didn't get a fair go, so I'm going to keep this one out. So I should have considerably more of that to show you next week. Right, I'm going to pull a project now before I get into the show stuff, in case people don't want to watch the show stuff. And then after the show stuff, I'll tell you about our silver wedding. I was going to say celebrations, but there weren't actually any celebrations. But I'll tell you all about that at the end, so people can dip in and out and just listen to the sections that they want to. Right. This is my jar of projects, and I've colour coded it. So the yellow, those are single projects. The orange are blankets, the blue are categories. I go through this every time. So all the sweaters and cardigans, all the tees are on a different piece, all the socks are on another piece. So I'm just going to pull a yellow one today and see what we get. And hope that we don't get the same thing that I pulled out last week, because I don't know what I've done with that piece of paper. It might have gone back in. Oh, now I could have done with this to take with me. That would have been simple knitting. It's my Stylecraft Charm sweater. I will find that for you now. I'm just going to pause you. I'm back. I don't suppose anybody remembers which bag this needle fell out of. I'll have to sort that out later as well. My hair is damp, and as you can see, there is a piece here that is determined to be dead straight today. Right, so Stylecraft Charm Sweater is in this bag, which coincidentally I bought at the Southern Wool Show last year. It was, oh no, it's a picture, it's part of the picture, sorry. I'm really not very well, so. And I am, yes, okay, easily distracted. So, this is the pattern. It is Stylecraft 9881. And it's just a plain V-necked stocking stitch sweater with no sleeves or long sleeves. I'm going for the long sleeve version because the lovely Ruth from Ruth Loves to Knit, I had one ball of this, and for the long sleeve version you need 2. And Ruth very kindly sent me another ball out of her own stash. So I have enough to do the long sleeve version. Oh, don't fall. It's knit on quite large needles. I think they're 5s. I'm sure it must say on there. Why don't I look at the one that hasn't got any stitches on? That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Yes, they're 5mm US 8s. Knit Pro Nova straights. And this is what I have so far. I will endeavour to remember to put a stitch marker in because I'm hoping to get quite a lot of progress on this poor screwed up sweater by the time I see you next week, because it's just quick knitting. I won't put a stitch marker on it right now. I will leave it out of its bag so I remember to do that. I'm going to put the needle back in because I'll be looking for that otherwise. I wonder what they're for. Okay, put the pattern back in there as well, mate. Okay. So, Southern Wool Show. I went, the sun's come out now. It's been cloudy and murky all day, and now that I've sat down to record and opened the blind, the sun's come out. Can you see my glasses going darker? Everything is sent to try me today. Yes, so went to the Southern Wool Show on a very, very tight budget because, not to put too fine a point on it, the vets have pretty much bankrupted us over Poppy's treatment. So I took with me enough money to buy 2 skeins of yarn. I was meeting up with friends and one of them was paying for the order that I was bringing, so I had a little bit more money than that, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing because I didn't want to buy much. I am trying, belatedly, it's now September, but I am trying to work down my stash. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The man next door's making a noise now as well. Cursed. So I was very choosy about what I bought. But I have come home with quite a bit. Well, I've got a reasonable stash that I've brought home because I received gifts, and yeah, so don't feel sorry for me. So on the Saturday, I didn't want to get there when it opened anyway. Oh, first of all, start at the beginning. Last week I said I didn't have a mobility scooter. Well, Dave and Ewan managed to find one. It was the last one in Yeovil, because it turned out there is another mobility hire place. But of course, everybody who would have gone to the place that I normally go to had snaffled stuff from there. So it was literally the last one, and it turned out to be brand new. There was still like the protective film on the lights and everything. I'm sorry, I'm going to have some water. Yes, so Ewan paid for it for me as a gift to go to the yarn show. So that was great. But I didn't want to get there at 10 o'clock on the Saturday morning, because there'd be a big queue to get in. When you got in, it would all be like mad, frenzied people everywhere trying to buy stuff. And we had to collect my friend Sue from the airport. So Dave left to collect her. It was about an hour from where we were to Heathrow to pick her up. She came back, we had a cup of coffee, and then we all set off together. So I got there, I suppose, about 12 o'clock. And the first people I bumped into, literally as I came through the door, were Kirsty and Tracy from Wool and Wishes. And they gave me a gift, which I will show you in a minute. I want to do all my gift things together, separate from my bought things. Then I went upstairs and sat, and because I told everybody that I'd be up there from between 1 and 2, and it was already 12:30. So we went up there, we had lunch. A lady came to say hello, and I think it was either Kate or Tracy. I know on the Saturday I met Kate, Tracy, Sue and Sean. I feel like there was someone else. I did write all this down. I wrote everybody's names down because I knew I would forget them, and Dave has the list. So if I don't mention you today, Dave has gone out. I will get the list from Dave and I will say a proper hello next week. I'm very sorry. So I sat up there and with my friends, and we did some knitting and we ate our lunch. And then I came back down and had a bit of a look around. I wanted really to just look around on Saturday and then on Sunday make my purchases. And I wanted to go and see the Yarn Mixology stand because I was wearing my Yarn Mixology Rocket Tee. The lady was very excited by it, so I was glad that I got it finished and I'd worn it. However, I am taking the I-cord off the bottom and putting on rib, because the minute I put it on, it flipped up and it just kept rolling up all day and it was driving me nuts. So it's going to get a rib on the bottom. I've got plenty of yarn to do that with. And then I saw this. It was literally right on the end of the stand as I went flying past it. The stall was Demelza's Delights, and I liked the colour, obviously. It's a lovely sort of murky, mossy green, and a colour that could be brown, could be burgundy, really nice. But, pardon me, what attracted my attention was that it looked different. It looked very rustic, but when I felt it, it doesn't feel terribly rustic. And it's hemp yarn, not completely hemp. It is 67% superwash new wool, 23% biodegradable nylon, and 10% hemp. And I have got absolutely nothing like this in my stash, so I did buy that there and then. And I suspect it will be another Magpie Tendencies. I have got some yarn, I'm sure, that I can put with it to do the saddle shoulder bit and the sleeves as much as they are. So yeah, I snapped that up straight away because it really caught my eye as I went past, and as I say, there's nothing like it in my stash, so I had to have that. And by then it was pretty much time to go, so we went back. We arranged we were going to meet up at the local Wetherspoons for something to eat in the evening. I'll explain why later on. And we had a couple of hours to kill. Dave and I had a nap. We were really tired. And then we all met up at the Wetherspoons. We had something to eat. Nancy didn't come. Our friend Nancy didn't join us. She has lots of food allergies, and so she doesn't risk somewhere like the Wetherspoons, which is just as well. I'll explain that later as well. And we were there, I suppose, a couple of hours, maybe a bit longer, but the rest of the clientele changed. Families having something to eat gradually filtered out, and young people coming ready for a night out began to filter in, and it got really crowded and really loud, and so we all just decided to call it a day and went back to our respective sleeping places. And then on the Sunday, we ended up not getting there till quite late again because I was really struggling to get going in the morning. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I am really weak and shaky, and it's not a blood sugar thing or anything like that. It's almost like my muscles have to wake up. It's very difficult to describe. I'm going to speak to my consultant about it when I see him next week, because I don't know if it's linked to the IgA, but anyway. So we were a bit later getting there on Sunday than I'd intended as well. Then we spent quite a lot of time looking for my friends who had sent messages to say they were in one place, but I don't know when they'd sent that. And by the time I got to that place, they weren't there. So anyway, we found them. And the mobility scooter, when you go up a slope, you have to turn the speed up. And it was just getting slower and slower and slower. And Dave said, turn it up to full. And it was on full. And it was just getting slower and slower. And then we realised that we hadn't charged the battery the night before. We'd completely forgotten about it because we'd been out. When we'd come back, it was pouring with rain. To get to where we were staying, you had to walk along this muddy bank, and I'd slipped and whacked my arm. I got a bruise and a scrape through my coat. And we'd just forgotten all about it. We were both really tired, and Dave's been struggling all weekend. He's damaged the meniscus in his knee, and he's wearing a big metal brace on his leg. So that's just more stuff. So anyway, he left me up with my friends to have lunch and knit while he went back to get the charger, and he sneakily plugged it into a socket and charged the scooter up because it was almost done. It was almost dead. So that then didn't leave very much time for looking around on Sunday by the time we'd charged the scooter up and we'd all sat and chatted and knit and eaten and everything. But I had seen something the day before that I knew I wanted to go back for. And I did. And it was this. So these are both 50 grams, and they're from the self-striping from All Wool That Ends Wool. This one is glow sticks, and it is 50 grams, 212 meters, so plenty for a pair of socks or a pair of mitts, so long as I use a contrast for cuffs, toes and heels. And that's easily done because I'll just put black with it, or I could even put lime green. I've got lots of stuff that I can put with it. It's 75/25 superwash merino and nylon, and it is 4-ply, and this one is the same makeup. And this is Deep Rainbow, and I don't know if it's coming out that it's burgundy and bottle green and golds and teal. And again, don't know if it's going to be socks or fingerless mitts. I suspect it might be fingerless mitts. But yeah, so they were my considered purchase, and together they added up to 1 skein of yarn. So that was my 2 skeins of yarns, essentially. That and the Demelza's Delights. But I had a bit extra to spend. So Dave had bought me a mug the day before from a stand that was, I can't remember what the name of the shop was, but she was clearing everything. Everything had to go. She was closing down her proper shop, and she didn't want to take anything back with her, really. So she would add up what you'd chosen and then ask you to make an offer. So these were originally on sale for £3 a ball. Again, they're 50 grams. It's Rico Super Sock, and they're 75.25. 200 metres in each. They should have been £3. I also got another mug, which I'll have to put a photograph in because I haven't got it here. This is where the mug that said, if I can't take my knitting, I'm not going, came from. And I think the one I bought says, I'm only happy when I'm knitting, something along those lines. And a darning egg and a ring that is in my purse. It's a yarn ring in the shape of a cat, so like a cat's tail curled around my finger and a cat's head at the other end of the ring, and all of that cost me £10. So that was all my shopping done, or so I thought. And then I'd seen Gail from Made by Me. I'd seen her on the Saturday as I whizzed past, and I wanted to go back and say hello on the Sunday. And I'd hoped to get, she has some large sort of triangular project bags, but she'd just sold the last one, and that was disappointing. But I did see this one, and so I ended up buying this as well. Her card is in here. Let me find her card. Oh, I'm not sure that's any easier to read. Let me show you her label. Gail is on Etsy, but her stock is quite depleted because of the yarn show. So I'm keeping an eye because I would like one of those pyramid-y. It's like a pyramid, but it's only 3 sides, not 4, I think. Anyway, she had little ones like Notions pouches, but I wanted a project-sized one. But this one, I almost bought one. Well, no, I didn't almost buy it because I have got a beautiful skull bag, and I didn't really want to spend any more money. But she had some lovely skull bags, but with them was this, and it has bats on, and I do like a bat, so I bought this one instead. There is also a cauldron. It's sort of round the corner, as it were, at the bottom. I don't know if I can. So it's got a cauldron and bats, and it's lined with Starry Night fabric. So I succumbed to that, which I shouldn't have done, but hey, I think otherwise I did pretty well. Right, that's on the floor. Everything else I'm going to show you is a gift. That's not quite true. There are a couple of things that I bought prior to the show that my friend Nancy bought with her. So I bought these out of her D-stash. It's a Pour Ply Yarn Co. sock set, and it's the Secret Garden. And this one, I don't know whose this is. I'm sure it said on the listing, but it's very, very soft. And I'm thinking maybe a Musselburgh for myself. So there's that one. And also, those I paid for, but these Nancy gave me. She found these. She was over the summer holidays, because Nancy's a teacher. She was having a bit of a clear out and a de-stash and what have you, and she came across these. Now, if you're new here, you may not know about my motorcycle obsession. I have a motorcycle that I haven't actually laid eyes on for 4 years, buried at the back of our garage because I've not been well enough to ride it. My husband has 3. My son and my daughter-in-law both ride. So I have been into bikes since I was way too young to ride one. And my dad, before I was born, had a Vincent. And Dave is the owner of not 1 but 2 Triumphs. Although they don't look like this. They are modern Triumphs. This one is a 1949 6T, so it'd be a 600, I think. But yeah. The other one's a 1952 Black Shadow, and that may even have been the model that my dad had. But what you can't see is outside my craft room door is a painting of a Vincent Black Shadow, which is the same as this. So I have fabric. Before I got back into knitting in a big way, for a few years I cross-stitched more than I knit, and I've got some beautiful kits. I've got a huge it's at the head of a woman wearing a crown of berries and leaves and everything, called the Autumn Fairy, that I started, and I've got about that much done, even though it's, you know, it's huge. But I have got fabric, I've got millions of threads. So these aren't kits, these are just charts, but I have plenty to be able to do them. And they're nice big charts as well, by the looks of things. That's quite large. Always good. So that's those. On Saturday, when I went upstairs and was sitting knitting and about to have my lunch, Diane from Enquiries Yarncraft suddenly appeared, and I'm sure I knew she was going, but I must have forgotten because it was a huge surprise to see her. And she also brought me a gift. She brought me, oh, Dave's clipped them together. That's not very helpful, is it? She brought me a army themed project bag, complete with dog tag. Now I do have 3, I think, of Diane's bags already, so I think she knew this would be well received. But it wasn't just a project bag, she also put in this skein of yarn, which is just stunning. And I'm in 2 minds what to do with this, because my instinct is, oh, I'll make another Magpie Tendencies. I can't just knit Magpie Tendencies. So I might try and exercise my imagination and knit something else out of this. It's called Rainbow Drops. And again, it's a superwash merino and nylon. And it is beautiful. I don't know how well the colours are coming out. It's gorgeous. Interestingly, when I started to dye my own yarn, I imagined that my yarn would come out like Diane's. It doesn't. You will know that it doesn't. And it's peculiar how we pretty much all use the same yarn bases, the same dyes, but we all get such very different results because I'm sure we're all using very similar techniques, but it's almost like a bit of your own personality comes out in the yarn. So yeah, thank you, Diane. I love them. I love them very much. Ewan was very interested in my project bag, and I did offer it to him if there was anything he could use it for, but he said there wasn't, so I had to keep it myself. Oh dear, how sad. Never mind. Then I'm reaching down into the bottom now. I told you the first people I bumped into were Kirsty and Tracy from Wool and Wishes, and they gave me this, which is 50 grams of their own hand dyed, and it's 85/15 superwash merino and nylon. If you watch Wool and Wishes, you will have seen it probably on their last podcast. They dyed up these and some really beautiful, sophisticated green. It's gorgeous. And also there's a little stitch marker and some stickers. I already have a Wool and Wishes pin from last year. I'm getting quite a collection now. We were all very excited and kept saying to them, so does this mean you're going to start dyeing yarn now? No. But they might change their minds. We'll work on them. We do that, you know. And then Saturday night, when we all sat down to dinner, my friend Anne had made us all these little Christmas decorations. How adorable are they? So come Vlogmas time, they're going to be hanging up there, I think, so that everybody gets to share them at Vlogmas. They are so cute. And then finally on Sunday, literally the dying throes of the day, Dave went with my friend Sue down to the bargain stall, and I hadn't seen this, but Dave said they had them. I would have bought this rather than the egg, and so Sue got me this. So as you can see, although I didn't go with very much money at all, I came home with rather a lot of things, which was okay. I'm not complaining at all. So that ends the yarny portion of the podcast. I shall now tell you about our accommodation and our lack of silver wedding celebrations. So, as you know, Poppy has been very, very poorly. We've spent, I don't even want to add up how much we spent at the vets. So we had planned to have, not the weekend just gone, but the weekend before, which would have been just before our wedding anniversary, to have a blessing in church, like a vow renewal, and then take guests out for lunch. Well, that all went by the wayside months ago. And back in, must have been the beginning of May, when I bought the yarn show tickets, we also booked our accommodation, and we were looking at the usual stuff, travel lodges and Premier Inns and what have you. And then on Airbnb, Dave found this. It's called the Tiny House, and he fell in love with it. And I thought, well, you know, it's our holiday. It's a long weekend. It's our holiday. We don't go away. We haven't been on holiday since 1999, and that was our honeymoon. So I booked it, and I paid for us to originally have 2 nights, but then I bumped it up to 3. And then when it came to, you know, all the money we spent on Poppy, I thought, well, that's going to be great because there's a little kitchenette. We can cook, we can save money on going out to eat. So we got there, and you had to park. How can I describe this? The man who owns the Airbnb had built it at the bottom of his garden. So you had to park on what would be his front garden at the front of his house, and then walk up the road and down like a little lane, and then along the canal towpath and into the garden. And that was quite a long walk for me. I didn't want to use the mobility scooter because there was nowhere to put it out of the rain, and it pretty much rained there all weekend. So the towpath was very muddy and very deep puddles. But yeah, so we went, and poor Dave's backwards and forwards to the car all the way around. It was almost a 5-minute walk backwards and forwards, with all the hundreds of bags that I had thoughtlessly taken with me, and food because we'd shopped before we went and everything. So Friday night we got ourselves settled in, we put the oven on to cook some dinner, and oh boy, the whole place, I mean, it looked okay, but it wasn't super clean. There were cobwebs in the lampshades, and like clumps of dust in the corners, and it had a tiled floor, and you could see where stuff had been spilt and the floor hadn't been washed. The cooker had a glass top, you know, a glass hob. Is it halogen hob? And that was thick with dust, and also like where someone had been cooking and splashed oil, that was all on the hob. But we turned the oven on, and you know, if oil has spilt in your oven and you forget to clean it out, and the next time you put your oven on it smokes and it smells of burning oil, yeah, that was what the oven did. And we opened all the doors and windows to try and get rid of the smell. But I am very sensitive to smells, and so I didn't get hardly any sleep Friday night because it was a tiny house and there was no escaping from the smell of burning oil. So I just kept waking up all night because of this smell. So we decided then and there we couldn't cook. We couldn't cook at the B&B. So we ended up going out for something to eat Saturday night, which was great because we went out with everybody, and Sunday night also. But the worst bit was the bathroom, which, before anybody gets grossed out, it was clean. I'm not sure it was bleached clean, but it was clean. But because it was so tiny, how can I put this delicately? The shower cubicle, which was very small and had one of those kind of bifold doors, took up half the room. And then there was a little sink, very small sink, and then the lavatory pan, which was actually pressed up against a wall. It wasn't the oval shape, it was rectangular, and it was pressed against the wall, and it was very low, and, not to put too fine a point on it, unsuitable for anyone other than a child to use. So that made things very difficult for me because I struggled to get up and down off low things. And again, how can I put this delicately? I don't think I can. My backside didn't fit, okay? I'm just gonna say it as it is. My backside did not fit. Now I am a larger lady, but even Dave couldn't sit on it properly because it was rammed against the wall. So you were trying to sit like this. It was pretty awful. And the seat was broken. One of the sort of at the back, you've got two little plastic screws that go through and hold the seat. So you'd sit on it and it would slide out from under you. It was just horrendous. So because I didn't want to have to use the toilet, I pretty much didn't drink all weekend. Don't all yell at me. I know it's bad. I know. And trust me, I'm paying for it. But I didn't really have a lot of choice. So I was just like availing myself of facilities while we were out and trying not to have to use them when we were back at the B&B. It was a bit of a disaster. And poor Dave didn't enjoy it as much as I'd hoped he would, because he could see I was struggling with it. Yeah, so I've essentially been thirsty all weekend. I've been dehydrated since Friday. Today is Tuesday. By the time we were driving home yesterday, I had some kidney pain, which got worse and worse and worse as the day wore on. And by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I didn't say anything to Dave, but I was beginning to think we might have to go to the hospital. But as soon as we were home, I started drinking little and often, just a mouthful every 10 minutes or so. And fortunately, within 3-4 hours, I'd got rid of the pain. So I'm just today feeling very, very thirsty. My tongue is sore. I'm so thirsty. But there's no point drinking down pints of water because it just goes straight through. I have to do little and often to rehydrate. Otherwise, I won't get the benefit of it. So, yeah. The best bit was meeting up with friends, and some friends that I hadn't met physically before. So Diane and I have chatted in each other's comments and on Instagram Messenger. It's not Messenger, is it? Chat. And so on. But we'd never actually physically been in the same space. Same with my friend Nancy, my friend Sue, Anne, Tony. They're all Zoomy friends who I've spent hours and hours and hours with. But we've never actually breathed the same air. So that was great. A couple of friends who had hoped to come couldn't, so that was a bit sad. We felt their loss, shall we say. But we made the best of it and we enjoyed ourselves anyway. Sorry, girls. But there's always next year. So hopefully they'll get there next year. So yeah, I don't want you to think that I'm sitting here going, it was all miserable, I hated every minute of it, because it wasn't. I had a great time. I just would have liked a more suitable bathroom, let's put it that way. Apart from that, it was fantastic. Had a great time. Oh, I was going to tell you about the food allergy thing. So Sunday night we went back to the Wetherspoons for something to eat. It's fairly cheap food, but you know what you're going to get. It's, if you're not in this country, it's a bit like McDonald's. Doesn't matter where you go, you get the same food. So I ordered a pizza, and my pizza was delivered with Dave's meal. My meal was delivered, and I'd ordered a glass of lemonade, and what I got was fizzy water because apparently the syrup had run out. And my pizza was not the pizza I'd ordered. It was ham and rocket, which I think in America you call arugula. And I can't eat that. I'm allergic to, well, I'm not allergic to it. I'm sensitive to it. It upsets my stomach, which you will understand under the circumstances with the bathroom situation, I could not afford to have happen. So we sent it back, and I'd ordered a pepperoni pizza with extra, I'd paid extra for red onion and mushrooms. So a pepperoni pizza finally appeared. Dave had pretty much finished his meal by then, with about 6 tiny curls of red onion on it and no mushrooms. And so Dave went and found the man again and brought him back, and the man was like, well, what would you like me to do? And I was sitting there trying to form a polite response, and he said, do you want me to just bring you the mushrooms? And I went, yes please. So he brought the mushrooms, but by the time he came back, I don't know if someone had a word with him or he thought better of it, and he said, would you like free drink to make up for the mix-up? And I just said no. I just wanted to eat my dinner and go. So yeah, so it's probably just as well that Nancy didn't come with us, because they would almost certainly have poisoned her. They tried to poison me, but yeah. So I will continue to drink small sips of water for the next 2 or 3 days, probably, until I have rehydrated myself. I didn't tell you about running myself over with my own mobility scooter, but that's just far too complicated to explain, so I'm not even going to try. It was an eventful weekend. But yes, I've made a terrible mess, as I usually do when I'm recording, but it's actually more spectacular than usual today. And I see I've managed to speak for nearly an hour when I didn't think I had much to tell you. So I'm going to go and drink more water. Try and figure out where that random cable has fallen out of. I remember getting it out and saying I didn't need it, but I don't remember which bag, but I can probably figure that out quite easily. No doubt you're all in the comments telling me which bag it came out of, but it'll be too late by then. That's tomorrow. So anyway, I'm going to go. I'm going to drink my water. I'm going to be resting as I have been instructed by Dave and Ewan, who have gone out for the day without me. And I will see you next week with hopefully a bit more knitting to show you than I managed over the last week. You'd think, having gone to a knitting show, there'd be loads, wouldn't you? Nope. Too much of this, not enough of this. So I will see you next week, and until then, happy knitting, everybody. Bye.